Well, Jake Paul's attorney says he was out of state and not at his Calabasas home during that raid today. The FBI says they're investigating allegations of criminal acts. Today, YouTube star Jake Paul is making headlines after an FBI raid at his home in Calabasas. Sky 5 was over the scene Wednesday morning as federal agents entered Paul's home in a gated community off Mulholland Highway. 24 feds, some in tactical gear, could be seen carrying evidence from the property, including several firearms. After the search, a SWAT team was seen leaving in a procession of law enforcement vehicles.
The Calabasas raid is the image that will endure because optics shape reality. Aerial footage of federal agents removing evidence from a mansion cannot be neutralized by charity mentions, motivational speeches, or carefully scripted interviews. That single visual permanently alters public perception, regardless of where legal outcomes eventually land. No PR team, no lawyer, and no podcast appearance can fully scrub it away once people truly absorb what they saw.
At any point, did you start to take your foot off the gas just a little bit because you noticed he was tiring out?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a bit. You know, I wanted to give the fans a show, but I didn't want to hurt someone that didn't need to be hurt.
Did you carry Mike?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. Yeah, like there was a point where, you know, I was just like, okay, he's not really engaging back. And so I don't know if he's tired or whatever. And I could just tell, you know, his age was showing a little bit. And I just have so much respect for him. And that like violence war thing between us, like after he slapped me, I wanted to, you know, be aggressive and take him down and knock him out and all that stuff. But that kind of went away as the rounds went on.
This rapid escalation, from influencer boxing to heavyweight exposure to federal scrutiny, happened so quickly that it forces an uncomfortable question. Who believed the brand was untouchable? History is filled with figures who thought momentum would protect them right up until the moment it didn't. Reversals like this are rarely isolated accidents. Anthony Joshua exits largely untouched, his legacy reinforced by professionalism and restraint. Jake Paul, however, faces a harsher reality. His identity was built on silencing doubters, and now those doubts are no longer whispers online, but full-scale mainstream discussion, a far more brutal arena to survive.
Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson was 100% scripted. Mike Tyson repeatedly bit his boxing glove throughout the fight. When fights are scripted, fighters do weird gestures to signal that they're hurt. It's very possible Mike Tyson was biting on his glove to tell Jake Paul to calm down. Now, if that's not enough proof that this fight was scripted, in the middle of the fight, Mike Tyson is literally talking to Jake Paul while they are clinched.
I'm not celebrating anyone's downfall, but accountability feels closer than ever. Stories like this rarely end quietly. Investigations move slowly, leaks appear inconsistently, and when silence sets in, it often signals something heavier forming behind the curtain, waiting until it can no longer be contained. I keep returning to Anthony Joshua because he didn't just beat Jake Paul in a boxing match. He shattered a carefully managed illusion by simply being a real heavyweight professional, showing up, following the rules, applying pressure, and exposing the difference between controlled spectacle and authentic elite-level boxing without theatrics or personal animosity.
That's definitely a crazy fight because of the weight differences. The weight difference in there, I only know one man that'll do the weight difference like that, and that's the Bronze Bomber. You know, for me, in my opinion, I think it's scripted a little bit because, you know, of the weight difference, and, you know, Joshua is a former, you know, champion. And also, you know, he's current, he's active, you know, and this is going to be the first time that we see Paul, you know, fighting an active fighter. You know what I mean? We seen the Mike Tyson, that was all fun, that was cute, you know what I'm saying? It's fun and games and stuff, but now you're dealing with a real professional, you know.
Jake Paul built his boxing persona around control of opponents' narratives, pacing, and expectations. When that control slipped across multiple rounds under Anthony Joshua's calm pressure, the panic didn't just show on Jake's face. It rippled through managers, promoters, and defenders who suddenly realized the brand was standing on thinner ice than anyone wanted to admit. The FBI angle hit hard not because of drama or gossip, but because federal investigations don't care about fan loyalty or influencer culture. They care about financial patterns, betting irregularities, coordination, and money flow. Once gambling enters the conversation, the story shifts from entertainment controversy to something far more serious and legally dangerous.
Any agreement about, hey, you need to get the fight into this round, you need to carry him for X amount of rounds, you need to do your part to get it into the 5th, 6th, or whatever?
Absolutely no way ever. I mean, if you look at a couple of the right hands that AJ missed with in the first couple of rounds, like, they would have done the same job on Jake's jaw if they would have landed. And Jake did very well to avoid them. So I always said going into the fight, AJ's not the kind of guy that's going to come out like a train, just start swinging away. He's going to take his time, and that's what he did. You know, the fight definitely went a few more rounds than anticipated from Anthony, but it's like, even now, it's like, yeah, it was definitely a fix. Some guy commented today on one of my posts, yeah, it was definitely a fix. I go, you do know that he's broken his jaw in 2 places.
I don't think Logan Paul is foolish, which is exactly why the sudden silence, measured wording, and visible stress matter. Intelligent operators don't go quiet unless they're facing variables they can't spin. Anyone who's watched crises unfold in other industries recognizes the posture of internal damage, control, replacing public confidence. Saying Mike Tyson's name out loud is where many fans emotionally snapped, not out of disrespect, but confusion. Watching a 60-year-old icon move, react, and behave in ways that contradicted decades of muscle memory forced viewers to rewind footage instead of cheering live. Once people start analyzing instead of reacting, narratives begin to crack. Eddie Hearn's defensive posture stood out because promoters live comfortably in gray zones. Yet, even he sounded like someone trying to get ahead of a problem rather than dismissing nonsense. When he mentioned investigations hypothetically, it raised the uncomfortable question of why that possibility needed to be verbalized at all.
California mansion has been raided by the FBI. Multiple news organizations report. You can see in this aerial footage agents in uniform outside his home in Calabasas. Attorney told Reuters he would cooperate with the federal investigation.
Look like after his boxing career.
People think I do steroids and all this shit, so I have a plan because I think it's fucking bizarre. That's like the only excuse they can come up with is like rigged fights. Jake Paul does steroids. So after boxing, I'm gonna do a cycle of steroids to show people what Jake Paul on steroids actually looks like, because I want to shut people the fuck up.
The leaked Tyson script still lingers in my mind because real conspiracies never look clean or cinematic. They look messy, partially accurate, and uncomfortably plausible when enough details align them perfectly. It feels less like fan fiction and more like a working draft. Anthony Joshua's performance only poured fuel on existing suspicion. Pauline maligning didn't sound bitter when discussing Jake Paul's career arc. He sounded relieved, like someone finally allowed to say what many fighters had privately believed. When experienced professionals begin aligning with casual fans instead of dismissing them, it signals a permanent shift in credibility that no marketing campaign can easily reverse.
There has never once in Jake Paul's career been any talk of that sort, of anything to do with the fight being anything but a real fight that has exactly the same situation as any professional fight. And that's exactly the same thing here for the Anthony Joshua fight. It's just beyond mind-blowing that people would think that. Anthony Joshua was on record saying that if he didn't finish him in the first round, that would be disappointing, that it would be a failure. The narrative changed as we got closer to fight night and obviously post-fight, and I understand why, but they were pretty adamant it would take max 2 rounds to knock out Jake.
Nate Diaz's media appearances only deepen that feeling, repeatedly reminding people that boxing is historically dirty while insisting on total innocence doesn't reassure anyone. It highlights how thin the line is between entertainment and manipulation, and unintentionally reminds audiences why skepticism exists. Jake Paul joking about steroids was one of the strangest self-inflicted wounds imaginable. Bravado under scrutiny doesn't project innocence, it reframes suspicion. And when stricter testing like Veda had previously been avoided, older decisions suddenly appear less strategic and more evasive once viewed in hindsight.
Let me know your thoughts on Jake going 6 rounds with AJ.
You know, the fact that he did that, it was good because, you know, we didn't think it was going to go 6 rounds. We thought it was going to go 2. So the fact that he made 6 rounds is an accomplishment for Jake Paul.
Was there anything that stuck out with you from the fight?
Yeah, really, who was in better shape? I thought that Joshua was in great shape compared to Jake Paul because he was running around the ring.
You guys gotta walk,
and that takes out a lot of energy, especially when you're not used to it.
What truly changed after the Joshua fight wasn't the loss itself. It was the public tone. Fans stopped laughing and started investigating, slowing footage, comparing timelines. Once an audience turns analytical, the circus phase ends and the accountability phase begins, whether anyone involved is ready or not. In combat sports, perception becomes reality with alarming speed. Once fans feel misled, even unintentionally, trust evaporates faster than wins ever build it. Jake Paul is now facing an audience that no longer wants to be entertained. They want answers. Anthony Joshua never needed to say a word afterward. That silence spoke louder than any press conference because real champions don't argue narratives. They let footage, composure, and consistency speak for them, and AJ walked away looking like the adult in a room full of noise. Ironically, Jake Paul's greatest strength, storytelling, became his biggest weakness. When you train fans to expect narratives, they begin dissecting every beat when something feels off. That microscope is unforgiving when money, betting, and reputation intersect. The FBI element changes the psychology entirely. Even if nothing ultimately sticks, the presence alone reframes everything that came before it. Old clips, old interviews, and old contradictions are replayed with fresh suspicion. Logan Paul's role feels understated, but crucial because he understands media cycles better than almost anyone. When someone like that goes quiet, internal conversations are usually far more serious than external messaging suggests. Mike Tyson became the emotional tipping point for fans because legends carry memory with them. When behavior doesn't align with history, discomfort sets in and people instinctively search for explanations. Eddie Hearn's comments still echo because promoters are masters of dismissal. Yet his tone carried caution instead of confidence, a subtle shift longtime boxing observers immediately noticed. Paulie Malignaggi speaking openly felt like a pressure valve releasing. Fighters live in reality, not branding decks, and when they sense the public catching up to what they've seen firsthand, discourse changes overnight. The insistence on transparency ironically highlighted how fragile credibility can be. Over-explaining often raises more questions than it answers, especially in a sport conditioned by suspicion. Jake Paul's steroid jokes may have been meant as defiance, but timing matters. When scrutiny is high, humor reads as provocation, and provocation invites deeper examination. Veda testing discussions resurfacing remind us that boxing never forgets unresolved questions. It simply shelves them until moments like this give them new relevance. Fans have stopped being spectators and started acting like analysts. Once that happens, spectacle loses power and evidence becomes everything. The Calabasas raid image lingers because visuals imprint harder than explanations. Regardless of outcomes, that footage now exists permanently in Jake Paul's public timeline, something no rebranding can fully erase. This moment doesn't define his entire life, but undeniably defines an era of his career. Reinvention is far harder when credibility, not just skill or entertainment value, is questioned. Anthony Joshua's involvement feels almost accidental yet pivotal. By simply being authentic, he exposed the gap between performance and promotion, and that contrast unraveled everything else. Boxing absorbs damage from moments like this because every controversy reinforces old stereotypes, and honest fighters pay the price when fans grow cynical. Influencer boxing blurred lines too well, and once those lines blur, investigators, journalists, and fans inevitably try to redraw them, especially when serious money is involved. This isn't in a Jake Paul story, but it is a reckoning point. The next move must be grounded in reality rather than control, because control is exactly what slipped away. Logan Paul, Anthony Joshua, Eddie Hearn, Paulie Malignaggi, and Mike Tyson all act as mirrors reflecting back at Jake, and none of those reflections are flattering right now. Quiet periods are more concerning than loud ones, because silence usually means strategy, and strategy suggests anticipation, not closure. What we're witnessing isn't a downfall or victory. It's accountability knocking louder than ever. How Jake Paul responds will determine how this chapter is remembered, not the fight itself.